Good day, everyone. This is Poppy here, and thank you for joining me on this latest update from Poppy Report. If this is your first time tuning in, I encourage you to tap that subscribe option so you can catch every one of our breakdowns on the pushback that's building against Trump. Now, turning to our opening segment, which carries real weight and no room for humor, a Republican senator named Rand Paul directly challenges one of Trump's key supporters, the nominee for Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, over actions that amount to violations in Venezuela. See how Rubio tries to justify what's hard to defend. The people who framed our nation spent a lot of time discussing which part of the government ought to hold the authority to start or announce a conflict. Almost without exception, they agreed, and it's written right into our founding document, that Congress should handle the decision to begin or declare any hostilities. These days, plenty of voices, including some present right now, push for a broad view of what the president can do on their own. They tend to claim that military efforts aren't actual conflicts, but rather quick strikes or efforts to stop illegal activities. Still, if you flip the situation around, those points fall apart pretty fast. So, let me put this to you. Imagine another nation struck our defense systems from the air, seized and took away our leader, and cut off our borders. Would we see that as starting a war? I appreciate your point, and I'll note that you've held steady on these views throughout your time in office, no matter who's leading. Let me address a couple of aspects. First off, it's tough for us to picture an effort that wrapped up in roughly 4.5 hours, focused on enforcing the law, to grab someone we don't view as a legitimate leader, who's facing charges here with a reward of $50 million, as anything like a war. But what if it only lasted 4 hours to grab our own president? Very brief. No losses on their end, none on ours. Flawless execution. Would that count as starting a war? We simply don't see this kind of action as fitting anywhere near what the Constitution means by war. Yet, if it happened to us, no fatalities, minimal harm, quick entry and exit, a smooth operation, would we call it an act of war? Without a doubt, that would qualify as launching a war. I count myself as one of the strongest voices against conflict in the Senate, and I'd support a formal declaration if anyone came into our territory and removed our leader. This shows we have to recognize that this line of thinking only works in one direction. Positions that don't hold up when turned back on you, that lack broad application, just don't stand strong. We should put these matters to a vote, but in my view, we're going against both the intent and the clear rules of our Constitution when we launch strikes on a nation's capital, seal off a whole country, and oust those in elected positions. We absolutely wouldn't stand for it if the roles were reversed, and neither would I. Shifting now to that blend of sorrow and sharp humor in a standout exchange. Regarding the tragic losses and poor handling in Minnesota, GOP Senator Thom Tillis took and jabbed Trump aimed at him and turned it right back with force. They're undermining what I see as a solid and coordinated effort by ICE, yet they're also casting doubt on these very agents. This will only heighten the risks and challenges in their work due to the poor judgment coming from Noam and from Stephen Miller. I recall the president labeling you as a failure, right? I'm actually pleased by that. It positions me well to step into roles like leading Homeland Security or advising the president closely. That's quite a burn. Tom went further in a more straightforward discussion with Jake Tapper. You've caught wind of various claims from Christine Noam and Stephen Miller regarding the events with Alex Frey on that Saturday. At the very least, those individuals lacked full information. In the worst case, they weren't telling the truth. We've all reviewed the footage. How have you responded to their statements about Alex Frey and their version of what took place? I believe they're letting down both the public and the president by failing to grasp the intense scrutiny these actions draw and why precision and order are crucial. They jumped in with comments before understanding the facts on site. They skipped even the standard steps you'd follow after an incident involving an officer's use of force, which serves to safeguard those involved as much as to secure the area and all elements for a proper review following an injury or loss of life. They rushed their words, seemingly eager to shape the story before it unfolded, and that truly harms their standing. It raises real doubts about how reliable they are. And there you have it. It's satisfying to note these moments when Republicans challenge Trump, but we should end on a thoughtful note about the flawed and insincere framework that our elected officials have built and choose to stay within. A former account holder named Sensible Middle points out the reason personal opinions and open dialogue are rare among lawmakers. Republican Tom Tillis isn't showing courage by voicing criticism of Trump. Tillis can speak freely because he's stepping down and won't seek another term this year. No Republicans display true boldness. They're all intimidated by Trump, who avoided the draft 5 times.